Jake Carson was halfway through supper when the phone rang. He wiped his hands on a faded dish towel and picked up the receiver. On the other end was Earl, a neighbor who lived about 5 miles away. Ranches could be large or small, but everyone looked out for each other because that's just the way things were done. Earl said one of his calves was missing and might have wandered onto Jake's property. Jake said he and Dusty would go out and look around before it got too dark. Jake didn't get the opportunity to talk to others all that much and quickly asked, "How's that young son of yours?" "Full of mischief," Earl chuckled. "Can't keep him off that pony I bought him last spring." They shared a brief laugh, the kind that came easy between men who spent most of their lives in quiet places. Earl thanked him for checking on his lost calf, and they hung up. Jake drank the remaining bit of coffee in his cup, strapped on his holster, pulled on his hat and coat, and headed out to the corral. Dusty, his loyal gelding, stood waiting near the gate, flicking his tail at flies. Jake rubbed his neck affectionately and murmured, "Well, partner, looks like we've got a little more work before dark." The sun was slipping low over the plains, throwing long orange shadows that rippled like waves across the open land. The faint smell of dry earth and wild sage filled the cooling air. Jake swung into the saddle, gave Dusty a gentle nudge, and they started down the well-worn trail that led toward the north fence line. They rode for 10 or 15 minutes through a landscape painted gold and violet by the setting sun. A lone hawk circled effortlessly high overhead. The only sounds were the creak of leather and the steady rhythm of Dusty's hooves against the hard ground. As they neared the north fence, Dusty suddenly stopped, ears flicking forward. Jake knew that look. The horse had heard something. He tightened his grip on the reins and listened. The prairie was quiet, except for a faint yipping sound drifting in from the distance. Coyotes? Usually they hunted smaller animals like field mice, jackrabbits, or birds. But tonight, the cries sounded different, coordinated. They were calling to each other, hunting together. They sometimes formed loose packs when hunting larger prey. Jake's first thought was of Earl's missing calf. He pressed his heels gently into Dusty's sides, guiding him toward the sound. The cries grew sharper, more frenzied, echoing through the cold air like ghostly laughter. Dusty's ears twitched, his muscles tensed beneath Jake's knees. Then came another sound, faint but distinct, a panicked cry. Not that of an animal, but of a child. Jake's heart kicked hard. He spurred Dusty forward, the horse lunging through the sage and sand. The yips turned into snarls now, closer, but still a ways ahead. Topping a low rise, Jake could make out shadows weaving through the brush, lean bodies, yellow eyes catching the last of the light. Down in a small hollow, huddled near a fallen log, was a little girl, no more than 6 or 7, clutching something in her arms. The coyotes had formed a half circle around her, pinning her to the fallen log, creeping closer. The air snapped with tension as the coyotes closed in even tighter, their low growls vibrating through the grass. The bigger coyote was tensing, ready to leap, while his companions had cut off any escape to the sides. Jake's instincts took over. He drew his pistol and fired a single shot into the air, the sharp crack echoing across the plains. The blast shattered the silence, sending the coyotes scattering in a blur of motion and dust. They yelped and vanished into the brush, their yellow eyes flashing once more before disappearing into the night. Dusty snorted beneath him, steady but alert, the smell of gunpowder hanging in the cooling air. "It's all right now," Jake called softly as he swung down from the saddle. The girl's cheeks were streaked with tears and dirt, and she clutched something in her small hands, a trembling rabbit, its fur matted with a little blood from a shallow bite. "You're safe," Jake said gently. "What are you doing way out here, sweetheart?" "The bunny was hurt and I chased after him," she sniffled. "I wanted to help him, but then I couldn't find the road anymore." Jake crouched down beside her, checking the rabbit. "Just a small scrape, nothing too deep." "Looks like you did good," he said with a faint smile. "He'll live." "My name's Jake. What's yours?" Emily," she stammered. "Well, Emily, it's nice to meet you, but we need to get you back to your folks before those coyotes regroup and come back for a second try." He lifted her carefully into the saddle, letting her hold the rabbit close. Dusty stood calm as Jake swung up behind her. The horse knew the way home. "You did a brave thing trying to help that little fella," Jake said as they started back. Emily looked up at him. "Are coyotes bad?" she asked quietly. "Not bad," Jake said, his voice low and steady. "Just hungry, same as any of us. Everyone and everything is just trying to survive out here on the prairie. It can be beautiful and dangerous at the same time." They rode slowly through the deepening dusk. The wind whispered through the grass, and somewhere far off, a lone coyote called again, not in malice this time, but in hunger and loneliness. Jake looked down at the little girl resting against him, and thought about how thin the line could be between safety and danger, life and loss. Out here, everything fought to survive, but it could all change in a heartbeat. When they reached Jake's ranch, he helped her down and took her inside to warm up. He called the sheriff on his landline. There wasn't any internet or cell service this far out, and told him he'd found a young girl near the north fence. The sheriff's voice on the line cracked with relief. "You found her? Thank God, Jake, her folks are beside themselves." "I've got her safe and sound," Jake said. "Little banged up, but she's all right." "I'll be there in 20 minutes, and I'm bringing her parents," the sheriff said, his tone thick with emotion. "They're worried sick." When the sheriff's headlights finally appeared down the long dirt road, Jake felt the tension in his chest ease for the first time that night. The girl, now wrapped in one of his old flannel shirts, perked up at the sight of the truck's light slicing through the dark. Before the vehicle even stopped, a woman flung open the passenger door and ran toward the porch, crying her daughter's name. Emily raced to meet them, and her parents swept her up in their arms, their sobs muffled in her hair. Her father's hands trembled as he pulled her close, and her mother whispered over and over, "Thank you, Lord. Thank you." Even the sheriff had to turn away for a moment, clearing his throat. Emily's father tried to press a few folded bills into Jake's hand, but he shook his head. "You keep that," Jake said, "just glad she's safe." The sheriff wanted to take a picture to mark the occasion and pulled out his old camera. Emily clutched the rabbit with her parents standing on either side, and Jake reluctantly joined them after a fair amount of pleading. The flash caught Jake off guard, and he was smiling despite himself. It was a simple moment, but one that would last for years to come. The sheriff smiled, thinking that it would look good in the newspaper. "This should get me re-elected come November," he said. Everyone chuckled for a moment. Later that night, after the sheriff's truck taillights faded down the dirt road, Jake unsaddled Dusty in the barn. The horse nickered softly, tired but content. Jake filled his feed bin with an extra scoop of oats. "You earned it, old boy," he said with a pat. "We did good today."
If you've made it this far, it's probably because of one of two reasons. You're either asleep, which is great, or you found the story interesting. If you maybe, kinda, sorta almost liked it. Just a side note, Emily's bunny and Jake's horse both like carrots, and carrots don't grow on trees. If you'd take just a minute to give us a thumbs up, we'd really appreciate it.